Have we stopped? So very warm welcome to all of you. Radhe Radhe. Good morning, good evening to all of you. Welcome to another exciting session of Bhagavad Gita. We will continue to have our discussion on the shloka that we picked up yesterday. And today we are going to talk about what are the different... See, this shloka that we are discussing, Lord is talking about different people based on their propensities take different paths. Some go down the path of austerities, some go down the path of gyan, tapogyan, austerities, and then bhakti. So we will talk about what are the different destinations possible for the soul. It's going to be a fairly engaging conversation, and some of you might be listening to some of the stuff for the first time, right? The lokas and all that stuff. So participants who have already been attending these sessions, might be a revision for you, a refresher for you, but it is going to be pretty interesting knowing about the creation and where all the souls can actually end up in afterlife, even after God realization. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. We will do our opening prayers and then get to the topic of our discussion today. So I'm going to share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
We can see it, yes.
Okay, great. So we'll start with our opening prayers by taking the blessings of God and Guru. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. So Radhe Radhe, morning, good evening everyone. Today we have a hard stop at 10. So we will skip the recitation and get directly to the topic of our discussion today. We have a lot to cover today and there's going to be a lot of interesting discussion. So I'll do the quick recitation without going through the shloka itself. We will get to the topic of our discussion, including the soul soup segment. So the shloka that we've been talking about it, I'm going to quickly recite it and then we'll move along. Dravya yagya tapo yagya yoga yagyastatha pare swadhyaya jnana yagyascha yataya sanchita vrataha. In which Lord Krishna is saying some offer their wealth as sacrifice while others offer severe austerities. Some practice the eightfold path of yogic practices, yet others study the scriptures and cultivate knowledge as sacrifice while observing strict vows. That means different paths are being followed. What does it mean? So what, right? We said dravya, sacrifice that you can do. Then through tapasya, you can do that. Dravya means the means like giving your wealth or doing philanthropic deeds or helping others. Some people are nice, right? They're just nice. They want to be good. What does happen? We are going to talk about what happens in afterlife if you're following those practices, or you perform austerities, or you perform Gyan Marg, or if you're in Bhakti Marg. So let's talk about the different destinations or the possibilities. If you perfect your endeavor, or perfect your bhakti, or perfect your Gyan, or perfect your austerities that you are doing. So we'll get started. And like we always do, our initial segment is a soul soup segment where we pick up on the theme that we are discussing right now in our soul soup segment is success, happiness, and fulfillment series. So as part of this series, let's see what do we have today. Are you testing negative for being positive? I hope not. You need to test positive for being positive, and you need to test negative for being negative. So that means a positive mindset, be positive, is a good thing to have. Now you'll say, so what? So what is very important, right? To be positive, it's not just the blood group, but the mindset that we need to have as well. Now, this is a message you would have gotten over WhatsApp and forward. Hey guys, stay cool, stay positive, this, that, all that is fine. But does anybody become positive just by listening that? There are chances they may, for a moment, but then it goes much deeper. Nobody tells the technology around it, right? So, but yes, let's go a little deeper into this. It's the topic of our discussion as part of our Soul Soup segment a little bit, and then we will move forward. So being positive helps us in making us happier. We all are striving to be happy because being part of eternal bliss of the ocean of bliss, we are all seeking bliss in all of our endeavors. It improves our performance at work. It's important to know that it definitely improves our performance, and we'll pick up on each of these aspects in different sessions. Today, I'll just focus on making us happier. Enhances our physical health as well. Okay, so these are the three top benefits I picked up. Now, making us, having a positive attitude. Okay, let me start with a story. So there was a guy who had just lost his wife, and because their kids were well settled abroad, they they were busy with their lives, so not wanting to be, going to them at this stage of his life, he decided to spend the rest of his years in an old age home. So when he was, after finishing the contract and getting a room assigned, he was walking with the nurse. The nurse was walking him to his room. And she said, you know what? The room has a very luxurious carpet. She just explained, she started talking to him while walking him towards his room. He said, I really like it. This guy says, I really like it. Then she goes on to say, there's a fireplace also, which is made up of attractive red bricks there. And he says, wow, that's so nice. Okay, this guy says that. Then she said, the beautiful landscape pictures decorate the walls of the entire room. And this guy says, I love it so much. Until this nurse says, you have not even seen your room yet. How can you love it without even looking at it? So this guy says that I don't need to see it. Whether I like it or not does not depend upon the state of the room. It depends upon me. Right? So like that, there are some people who carry their weather with them. Okay, they are not depressed and finding reasons to become sad. So that attitude, positive attitude, stands us in good stead. There's another story I would like to tell you about it. That people think usually correlate money with happiness, right? So that King Midas story you might have heard, where he asks for a boon from a fairy, and he says that, give me an ability that whatever I touch turns into gold. She said, really, are you sure this is what you want? He said, yeah, sure, this is what I want. So then what he did was he tried to eat food, and his plate and food turned into gold. Then he tried to drink the cup, and the water, it turned into gold as well. Soon his loving daughter came to him to hug him. Guess what? She also turns into a golden statue. And now he was in despair. He calls the fairy back and asks her to take away this horrible golden boon that he had asked for. And then she asked, do you still think gold is the greatest thing in this world? He said, no, I've learned my lesson. I don't want gold. I want peace and happiness. So peace and happiness is what we are looking for. And happiness is a byproduct of a pure mind. And staying positive is something where we choose to stay positive in situations, adverse situations as well, is something that actually fast tracks the cleansing of our mind, which is the whole purpose of spirituality. So let's get started now with our topic, Bhagavad Gita. So just to put things in perspective, what we are going to look at today, let me start off by saying that if this entire creation were to be a sea beach, then our universe is no more than a grain of sand. Okay, this is the reality. If our universe, I'm just talking about our universe, okay, our universe is the operative word, so keep that at the back of your mind, were to be an entire sea beach, our universe is not basically creation. Entire creation, when I'm talking about, is the material world. So our entire universe, which we are not even aware of, is just like a grain of sand, and within that grain of sand we have a Milky Way. Within that Milky Way, we have our solar system. Within that solar system, we have Earth. Within that Earth, we have our country, and then our city, and our home, and then within us, and we think of ourselves as a big deal, right? So you can just imagine, even our entire universe is wiped off from this creation. It will not even cause a rounding off error in the grand scheme of things. Okay, that is how insignificant I would say we are in the grand scheme of things. So let's get started. What are the different destinations? Okay. Now, these are the possibilities in the shloka. You could be doing dravya yagya, where you are doing philanthropic deeds, you are serving with your money and all those things, right? You are just being nice, good. Everybody strives to be there. So you're doing good karma. Or you could do bad karma. If you're not doing good karma, then could be doing bad karma, or you could be doing neutral karma, right? Or if you could be seeking God through Gyan Yoga or through Ashtang Yoga, and then the God realization. So we'll talk about all these concepts and what are the different destinations for the soul based on the path that they have picked on, or based on the practices that they embark upon on a day-to-day basis. Okay? So lokas that make a Brahmand. Let's get started on this. Okay, so this is pretty fascinating. So let me start it by telling you that our material creation, this material creation where we are living right now, is only 1/4 of God's creation. 1/4. 3/4 is beyond our knowledge at this point. That those are spiritual abodes there that we are going to look at. And within this 1/4 of creation is pretty expansive as well. What is this 1/4 of creation? That is not just our universe. There are multiverse theory. The name itself is oxymoron kind of a thing. Yeah, universe and multiple universes. It's actually there are multiple universes out there. Our universe is just, like I said, is a grain of sand in this entire creation. So let's look at it, get a little bit of an idea around this. So let's say this is a universe. This is the whole material creation. Within material creation, there are different Brahmands. Brahmand is a universe. Like we have a Brahmand. Our Brahmand is owned by a Chaturmukhi Brahma. Our scriptures say that, the four-headed Brahma. And ours is but the smallest Brahmand in this entire creation of Chaturmukhi Brahma. Similarly, similar to our Brahmand, there are so many Brahmands. We have no count of that. It is said that you can probably count the specks of dust on this earth, but you cannot count the number of universes or the creation which is out there. Brahmands are out there. That is how vast this universe is. In fact, in Krishna Leela, God had called upon all the Brahmas. So you can just imagine. So what happened was that when Brahmaji went to Lord Krishna, he came to know that it's like a chief guest has come to your Brahmand, and then the prime minister or the principal of the school, let's say there's a chief minister who has come to your school, the prime minister has to go, the principal has to go and meet the chief minister. So he came to know that the governor of the entire universe has descended in my universe. I better go and meet him. So he goes to meet Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna says, okay, ask him who has come. So he said, he's saying that Brahmaji has come. So Brahmaji thought, of course, he would know about me. So, and Krishna, just to put things in perspective, he says, ask him which Brahmaji. So Brahmaji was zapped. What do you mean, which Brahmaji? So then he said, okay, call all the Brahmajis. And this Brahmaji is looking, he has 4 heads. And there are Brahmajis who has 10 heads. Then there's a Brahma who has 100 heads, 1,000 heads, million heads, trillion heads, infinite heads. He was blown away. So you can imagine if our universe is something which is beyond the reach or the understanding of our science at this point, how vast this creation is. All the stars that you see in the sky are not meant for the decoration of the sky. We have no idea about so many universes which are out there. In fact, it is said that there are certain suns. There are billions and trillions of suns in this universe, and they are so far away from us that even at the speed of light, ever since the creation, that light has not reached us as yet, because they are just so far away. So anyways, this is the whole material world, which is 1/4 of this creation. Now within material world, you have different Brahmands. Let's move further. And then beyond this material world, which is 1/4 of this creation, there is a river. Our scriptures explain it is called Birja River. Okay, it's like on the cusp of material world and the spiritual world that we have no access to as yet. Okay, the 3rd, 4th of creation. Now starts the spiritual creation. This is where, which is called Paravyom Lok. And what does it constitute? It constitutes Golok, Saket Lok, Shiv Lok, Devi Lok, Vaikunt, and so on. They are different abodes, spiritual abodes of God himself, the different forms of God. God is only one. It's a superlative term. So different abodes of the different forms of God, which is called Paravyom Lok. Now talking about Brahmand itself, Shivlok as well, by the way. And each dissension has an abode here. So every dissension of God, depending upon which Ishtadev you have, you may end up in that abode, okay, if you've realized God in that form. Now let's talk a little bit more about each Brahmand. Now each Brahmand has further some layers there. What are those layers? Let's see those. It has Bhulok, which is at the center, which is where we are. Then you have Bhuvalok. Then you have Swarlok, Maharlok, Janalok, Tapolok, Satyalok. Okay, so Satyalok is nothing but Brahmalok. So many abodes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You see that? So they are all basically the different levels of existence within this material world, or the upper planets, so to say, all the way up to Brahmalok. Similarly, we have, these are called upper planets. Similarly, this is the middle planet. You have lower planets: Atal, Vital, Sutal, Talatal, Vahatal, Rasatal, Patal. Okay, Patal is where Gulliver had gone. If you have read that story of Gulliver, I don't know where he went, but these are all called lower planets. Okay, this is in every Brahmand. And in addition to that, you have 28 Narakloks as well, where you go to hellish abodes if you have done really bad deeds in this life. Now, you must be wondering, what does it mean with regards to the discussion that we are having? So let me map that. If you do good deeds, you will go to Bhuva, Swar, Mahar, Jana, Tapo, Satyalok, one of these abodes. We don't know. God has the algorithm to put you in one of those abodes, especially if you always wanted to go to Swarglok, right? These higher abodes, upper planets. But they are again within the material world. You have not transcended material world as well. Or you could go to Atal, Vital, Sutal, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, Patal, or 28 kind of Narakloks. Okay, Narakloks are like, you go there for a long time and just bear the punishment. So if you wonder what happens to the criminals, people who do really bad deeds, this is where they go, and they have to suffer. They have to suffer for a long period of time. In Garud Puran, I won't recommend you to read that, but it talks about the kind of punishments that are met out, especially if you have been harboring a lot of negativity and you commit kind of crimes. You only think, why does it happen on this, right? So law of karma catches up with you, and you suffer. You have to suffer around that. So these are all called your material abodes based on the karmas that you do. So if you do good karma, let's say you do philanthropy, you are just restricted to being good. Then you go to the upper loks, upper planets, enjoy life, luxury life, like a trip to Hawaii. And when your money is over, when your punyas are kshin or done, back to 8.4 million, then you can again become an ant. That's what happens if you simply restrict yourself to being good. And that too, if you have predominantly led a life full of goodness, not beyond. Then what happens to people who attain God in form of moksha, nirvana, light? People say God is formless. I'm going to merge into God. You look at God, focus here, he's just a light, and light, 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 and finally I will merge into the God. So let's say if you merge into the God, you become Brahmaleen, or you become one with God, you lie in this Birja river. So the Brahmalins, they are merged with God, and they go up to Birja river, not beyond that. And people who actually worship God in his personal form, depending upon who their Ishtadev is, chosen Ishtadev is, they go to the spiritual abodes. Now, if your Ishtadev is Ram, Lord Ram, you go to Saket Lok and be part of his divine pastimes for the rest of eternity. You may choose to come with him when he takes avatar, or you may just choose to stay there and enjoy the divine bliss eternally. If you have worshipped Lord Shiv, you'll go to Shiv Lok. If it is Devi Ma, you'll go to Devi Lok. If it is Narayan form, you'll go to Vaikunt. And if it is Krishna, then you'll go to Golok. Okay, so this is how this whole thing, and this is 3/4 of the creation which we have no access to. So this is how vast our universe is. Now one may think that, okay, all these abodes are created. Why did God create a ticket for us, or created a business case for us based on our karmas? Were we ever united with God? Right? This is a very fundamental or a philosophical question. Why? How did this whole cycle start? Were we in Golok or Saket Lok or Vaikunt Lok, and then we finally dropped down to any of these? Does anybody has an answer to that? Has anybody thought about it? Were we one of these? Yes, Sandhya, go ahead. How did drama unfold basically, right? We should have been in one of the spiritual abodes. Why did it that we started off coming here basically, and now we are just rotating in this material world from one Brahman to another, and then we have to work our way backwards? Is it that we were united with God once and then fell apart because of something, and now we have to work our way back towards the God, or what happened actually? Anybody? It's a pretty philosophical question in that sense.
It is impossible to have unison with God and then get separated, and then go through this, right? So so basically, we were always Vimukh, facing away from God to start with. And that's why we are in this cycle. And once we face Him, then we will be out. And once we are in any of these Saket, Durga, Shiv, Golok, there is no way we can. We can come back by choice, but not as an obligation.
Okay, good.
And I had one question. I think I missed when you said this, so I just want to confirm. So, among these upper planets, is there one Swarglok, or they together are?
Upper planets are not Swarglok. Swarglok is a material word. These are Swargloks are in every Brahmand. When we talk about Bhuva, Swar, Mahar, Jana, Tapo, Satyalok, they are all Swargloks, higher planets. And
Yeah, these upper. Yeah, I was
when we
asking.
talk about Swarglok, it is in material realm. It's not spiritual realm.
Right. So you mentioned these are upper planets, right? So they are all considered as Swarglok.
Yeah, upper planets, they are all Swarg. I'll talk about the happiness in each one of these lokas. I'll have a slide for that to walk through that as well. But these are all upper planets, Swarg lokas, and king of all the Swarg lokas is Indra. Okay,
Thank
not
you.
all the lokas, but yeah, I'll get into that part. Yes, Rahul, you wanted to say something as well on this? I'll get to that. It's a pretty philosophical question. I used to wonder that for a while as well. Yes.
Radhe Radhe. Yeah, we were sitting in the Mahodar or the belly of Thakurji, and then Thakurji created the creation and graced us so that we have the opportunity to go back to go back to Golok or whatever lok we want to.
That happens at the time of Pralay as well. But yeah, let's understand it this, right? This is a topic in itself, right? We have touched upon it. For the participants who might be new, I'll give a quick synopsis of that. So we are basically a Jiva Shakti of God. If we were direct part of God, we would have been perfect like God himself. So we are like Jiva Shakti of God. There are three Shaktis of God: his internal energy, Swarupa Shakti, which is his Yogamaya Shakti, then his borderline Shakti, which is Jiva Shakti, and then his external energy, which is Maya energy. So we are his Tatastha Shakti, borderline Shakti. So let's say this is God, this is who we are, and this is Maya. So we have been eternally Bahirmukh. So when we were Tatastha Shakti, we were always facing Maya. And whoever wondered the source, where did I come from? They started seeking and then realized God, like so many saints. And people who have been seeking Maya ever since eternity, like us, they got further entangled into this mindset. And God has, to thicken the plot, He's given us the faculties of mind and what, right? So the day we turn back to our source, that's it. That is the whole purpose of spirituality. So we are currently turning our back towards God, and gradually as we turn it towards God, the job is done. So we have always been facing Maya. Okay, that has been our not constitutional position, our permanent position, so to say, the facing position itself. And nobody, it's like, okay, you got into a party and you said, okay, I'm going to enjoy the party now, without even questioning who put me here, why did I come here, kind of a deal. It's a pretty fundamental question, but yeah, some of these knots would get unraveled as we get close to more and more truths on this path. But we have always been facing Maya, and there are very few people who start questioning, okay, why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? What is my relationship with God? Those who do that, then they start seeking God, and those who perfect their devotion, they get into one of these spiritual abodes, and then you hit a lottery and you're never obligated to come back. So once you get into the spiritual abodes, there's no coming back. It's like you've become a puri, and after that you cannot become atta again, right? So that is how it works. Now, if you realize God in the form of light, formless aspect, then you are restricted to Birja river. And if you are doing good karmas, bad karmas, mix of both, we keep rotating in the material world, whether it's earth, higher planets, lower planets, or Naraklok. Okay, all these things. That is the game currently we are playing. So this is how it goes. Now, the good thing about this whole thing is, now planets of God, when we are talking about, God gives that privilege only to those people who want to serve him. Otherwise, you are restricted to the moksha level only. If you serve God, or if you fall in love with God, then only you get a eligibility or a ticket or a visa to any of these lokas. Right? The saints that come from time to time, then people who actually perfect their devotion in this lifetime, they go to God's abode. We have like Tukaram, Kabir Das, then we have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was Avatari himself, Mirabai, right? God's principle is to reciprocate. So when they approach God with loving sentiments, he is forced to oblige them. There's a shloka in Bhagavatam and even Bhagavad Gita, which is the only shloka, I think, which is repeated in both the scriptures, which says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tastathaiva bhajamyaham, that whoever worships me, whoever feels for me, worships me, loves me, sheds a tear for me, I am obligated to reciprocate in the same sentiment, at the same moment, to the same intensity, to the same person. Okay, that is God's rule. So Mirabai, if you know that, she was always protected by Lord Krishna, right? He's always, walking along with his devotee. When she drank poison, nothing happened to her. When she was about to end her life, a blue hand pulled her back. And finally, when she merged with the devotee, only some flowers and clothes were recovered. God actually accepted her, right? So that is the rule of God. But where do these people go? They go to his abode, because they always had a will to serve him and to love him. Those get the tickets to his abode. Rest get restricted to Birja river. Some get to Vaikunt. And the rasas, or the taste of that realization or the devotion, varies in each of these loks. That is a topic in itself. We are not going to get into that. Golok is considered where God is able to bestow his sweetest rasa. And within Golok also in Braj, because that's where God is in his full glory. Okay? Where he becomes enslaved to you. If you are in Vaikunt, you will worship God as Narayan. Oh my God, he's my king and I'm his subject. If you are in Saket Lok, you would still have a kind of a formal protocol with God, because Lord Ram is Maryada Purushottam. If you are in Shiv Lok, you'll have to first deal with Rudragan, but again, there has to be a bit of a distance, right? Because Lord Shiv is Lord Shiv, right? And then, of course, if you are in Devi Lok, I don't know if you're allowed to play with her lion or not, okay? But in Golok, you have a lot more flexibility and a lot more fun that you can do, because Lord Krishna is like, that's the form that he prefers as well. Yes, Sandhya, you had a question?
There's a question in the chat from Manjuji. Without having questions like who am I or why am I here, so will be drawn towards God is also possible.
You might have pondered upon that question, so that it's a no-brainer for you at this point. But the Vedanta Sutra, Vedvyas, the first commandment, so to say, which is mentioned there is, now that you are a human, inquire on this question and think about it seriously. Maybe you have already cracked that lesson in one of your past lifetimes, so it doesn't matter. You directly get into devotion, or it just comes naturally to you. So really depends what kind of sanskars we have inherited. So it's not necessary that you need to start your spiritual journey by asking this question. It is more for the people who have not even inquired about this question, who are still living a deluxe animal life, where all they care for is to enjoy life to the fullest and then just walk away from this life. That is why I said, when you're born as a human, too much more is given, more is expected as well. Like in Spider-Man, they say. Similarly, God has not made us Spider-Man, but he has made us human. He said, now that I've made you human, much more is expected from you. You better ask the deeper questions in life and don't just walk away from life frittering away with those 4 primal activities: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But yeah, if it comes naturally to you, you may not. Some people, they take to devotion, they take to spirituality like a fish takes to water. In that case, it's probably not needed. Yes, Shamji.
Well, there is a question from Michelle G. If you reincarnate in other lok, will you be human or something else?
I don't have the algo. I hope I had an answer for you. It's a pretty complex algorithm. Now, if you come back as human, first of all, they say you get a human birth in millions of kalpas. And I gave you the calculation of kalpa, right? How big a kalpa is. Kalpa is like the largest unit of time known to humankind. The smallest one is Truti. So, but when you are born as a human, in which Brahmand? Within that Brahmand, if there's a Prithvi Lok, and in which species, only God knows. We have no idea about it. Okay, I wish I had an answer for you, but it's all God's will, right? When he's going to make us human again, and which Brahmand will he choose for us, Chaturmukhi, Brahmaji, or somebody else? It's all very complex algorithm. Only God can answer that question. I have no idea about it, and there's no formula provided in our scriptures which will say if you do this, then you go to this Brahmand. If you do this, then you go to nothing of that sort. All it gives you a broader line that if you don't spend your human life wisely, then you will be back into 8.4 million. And in order for you to ensure that you are born as a human back to back, and this was a question asked to Maharaji, he said you should have spent at least 50% of your life in devotion or related to God, right? Then you can fairly expect a back-to-back human birth. Otherwise, it's very difficult. And then there's another shloka in Bhagavad Gita which says that you end up attaining your object of meditation. So however you have led your life primarily, based on that, God gives you the result. Okay. And it could be like whatever comes to your mind at the time of your death. And at the time of death, our mind is very disturbed. We cannot think about God very clearly at that point. So only if you can think about God at the time of death, can you get to God's abode. But that can only happen if you have practiced it long enough throughout your life. So it is said the process of God realization does not happen at the time of death. It happens before death, when you are sane, because then only at the time of death, you can actually think clearly, even in that excruciating pain that you are in, and can remember God. So it's not a matter of chance that, hey, I would lead the life the way I want, and when I'm about to die, I've got a hack into one of the abodes of God by thinking about God. No, it's not going to happen. If you have practiced it hard enough throughout your life, it's like sleeping all your way to glory and thinking that I'll wake up and win gold medal in Olympics. It doesn't work that way. It's not so straightforward. So God realization typically happens when you are alive and you are sane, not when you have lost it, at the time of your death. It doesn't happen at that point. But yeah, it's very difficult to know where we will end up. There's no formula for that as such. Yes, Sandhya, you had a question?
Follow up from Manjuji. That means in previous lives, one might have pondered upon those questions. That's why they will be easily drawn to God in this life.
Very true. In fact, Lord Krishna in chapter 7, I believe he said that, see, Arjun asked this question, what if I am not able to complete my journey in this lifetime? Will I be like that broken cloud, which can neither give rain nor anything else and gets blown away by the wind itself? So Krishna says, no, whatever spiritual merit you have acquired, I will give it to as a gift in your next lifetime. So it's a huge mercy from God where he preserves it for you. Because if he won't preserve it for you, then we are anyway on a suicidal mission. Every time we'll start from negative or zero, and we can never, keep on progressing. So he preserves it for us and bestows it like a gift. How does it bestow it like a gift? Because it will manifest in due course of time. First of all, if you have really spent most of your life aligning to spiritual principles and making it a priority, then he will arrange so that you're born in a family where that journey continues early on in life. You see, some kids are born in family where right from the word go, they are reciting mantras, listening to things, and devotion is so palpable in their families. And that happens. How does that happen? It happens only with the grace of God, because He's preserving it for you. So yes, whatever you have done in your previous lifetime is preserved and presented to you as a gift. And that is a huge mercy of God that He's spoken about in Bhagavad Gita. But yeah, the key thing here is, if you do punyas, you get into one of these Brahmans, one of these abodes, Swargloks. If you do a mix of good and bad, you will repeat on earth. If you do bad, you will go to lower loks. If you do really bad, you'll go to Narak loks. If you attain God as a form of light, moksha, you go to Birja river. If you attain God in form of Lord Ram, is your Ishtadev, you go to Saket Lok. If you worship God as Lord Narayan, you go to Vaikuntha Lok. If you worship him as Lord Shiva, you go to Shiv Lok. Krishna, go to Golok. They are all spiritual abodes. There's no coming back. So you can perfect your devotion and get into any of the spiritual abodes. That is the whole idea. The rasas vary, but they are all spiritual. And once you become God realized, there's no coming back. You can come back by your own will, maybe becoming a profitable servant of God, like saints come from time to time. Or God may say, hey, let's go on and do some kind of a leela, and descend down and do some leela in Braj. I'm going, and you may choose to come along with him at that point, but you're not obligated to come back and get the wax of Maya like we are right now. Yeah, that is how this goes. Any more questions on this? It's a pretty fascinating, right? You look at how big the universe is. Our universe itself, we are not, and there are so many universes. You have 4-headed Brahma, and you have 1,000,000-headed Brahma, and a 1,000,000,000-headed Brahma, and all of that put together is only 1/4 of the creation. 3/4, we have no idea about it so far. Yes, Sandhya?
Yeah, if there's time, I had one more question. So here we see Saket Lok, Vaikunt, Durga Lok, Shiv Lok, and Golok. But is that all, or there are
more I've given you? See, I run out of space. Real estate is limited here, okay? So just give you an idea. There might be more.
okay? Yeah, so basically, like as many avatars, as many.
There are
Okay.
much more lokas out there as well. And in fact, our scriptures go on to the description of even defining the dimensions. In one of the Maharaji's lecture I heard, I was like blown away. He was staying in the south of Saket, and Golok is there, and he's describing the dimensions of these as well, right? It's pretty fascinating.
And the coordinate.
Yeah. And when the Pralay, Mahapralay, all that happened, it is only, those rules apply only to the material world, not to the spiritual world. They remain intact. In fact, this material world is a prison house of God. So when you have a prison house, let's say there's a prison house of Dallas or Texas, the prison house cannot be bigger than the city. And if prison house is all that God has created, then he has done a terrible job. So what he has created is for the conditioned souls who want to enjoy Maya. We have made a choice. Maya is not, we have made a choice to enjoy Maya. And God is saying, okay, be my guest and keep on experiencing it. And we are continuing here. But once we are out of this prison, that is what his own abodes are. This is how it works. So the people who are in conditioned state, who have chosen to stay away from God, and they want to relish it for themselves, they want to be the supreme enjoys, they are put to these abodes. And then people who have made God realization or serving God or loving God as their ambition, and they perfect their devotion, they are out of this cycle. It's a very simple principle. Yes, Falguni. Now, after this, we have time. Yes, Falguni, after this, then I'll put some of the happiness that we are looking for in this world in perspective as well. So I have a slide so that you understand the happiness that we are after going out. How does, in grand scheme of thing, where does it actually, just to see it in perspective. Yes, Falguni, I'll take your question and then I'll get to that slide.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe Nitinji. This is only just for my understanding that if you attain God in the form of light, you go to Birja, you don't cross the Birja river, right? So that is because love and devotion or bhakti is missing. Is that the reason? I mean, have I understood it correctly?
Right, because you always aspired to meet God in the form of light, and you always wanted to merge with God. And that is why God says, so be it. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has said, I will meet you in the form in which you worship me. And if you have already, you are predisposed to thinking of God as light, God will meet you as light only. He will not say, tricked you, I have a morpunk and a flute also, by the way. You always thought of me as a light. They'll say, no, I'll meet you as a light only. And then you just merge with him. And then instead of relishing the Rasgulla, you become Rasgulla yourself at that point.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. See, God has a good sense of humor, but not to the extent where he'll say, I'll trick you. He will meet you the way you want to see him. That is his rule. He said, right? Ye yatha mam prapadyante tas tathaiva bhajamyaham. So you are thinking, God, you are light. God will say, sure enough, I'll meet you as a light only. That is how it goes. Yes, Rahul? So the key thing is we should try to avoid, see this whole thing on the right hand side, all the way up to Satyalok. It's like a golden jail. Okay, middle planet is where we are, and we should really refrain from going to Atal, Vital, Sutal, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, Patal, and definitely not Naraklok. So the least we can do being born as humans is to do good deeds. Okay, on deeds which are conforming to scriptures, that will at least give us a better birth, maybe a temporary luxury life. And that luxury, I'll put it in perspective in our next slide. Yes, Rahul, maybe one question, and then we'll spend a little bit of time in the next slide. It's very fascinating. Yeah, go ahead.
Radhe, there is a question in the chat from Kumarji, and he's asking, where is this Birja River?
Birja River is on the cusp of this, where this material world ends and where the spiritual world begins. So it's on the cusp of that. It's like a border in between. Okay, that is how it has been described in our scriptures. Okay, now let's move on. The happiness that is binding us to this world. Let's look at that happiness in perspective. Okay. So let's say somebody in this world is young. Okay, young, which is good. We all want to be young. Does anybody want to grow old? Probably not. Then intelligent as well. We like to know. Knowledge is powerful, so we absorb knowledge like a sponge from so many things. And then they're the ruler of the entire planet. Of the entire planet, let's you imagine that you are the ruler of this entire planet. All the countries and everything, all the resources are under you. More importantly, you're at the prime of your youth and you have a healthy body. No diseases, nothing. No thyroid, no cholesterol, no BP problems, nothing. And also the subjects are favorably aligned. Your relatives are very supportive. You don't have a political party which is saying, hey, you have done this, putting some cases on you, fabricated cases on you, and taking morchas against you. Nothing. Everybody is perfectly aligned. Too good to be true, right? If let's say you have all of these going for you together, and then in addition to that, you have all possible material luxuries as well. Anything and everything that humans crave for to lead a very comfortable life. So let's say you have everything, all of these put together. Then it is called the highest level of happiness on earth. It is conceivable highest level of happiness on earth, which is a unit of happiness of earth. Can anybody claim to have that? Nobody. Does anybody have a fraction of it? Possibly. But that is the happiness that is binding us to this world, this earth. Let's put it in perspective now. You multiply it by 1,000. Now, 1,000 is just a figure of speech. Our scriptures say koti. Koti could be million, billion, trillion, I don't know. But for the discussion's sake, I'm saying let's multiply. If it is 1 unit of happiness, if somebody has it, then it is understandable that, they are really happy and they have a good reason to stay in this jail. But nobody has it. And that too, even if they have it, just a fraction and temporarily. But our scriptures say, okay, if it was hypothetically possible, somebody had it, you multiply it by 1,000, which is called 1 unit of happiness in Manav Gandharvs. Okay, the next level of existence, upgrade of humans is Gandharvs basically. You multiply 1 unit of Manav Gandharv happiness into 1,000, that is 1 unit of Dev Gandharv. You multiply that with 1,000, that is 1 unit of Pitrilok. You multiply it by 1,000, that is Ajanak Lok. You multiply it by 1,000, it is Karm Dev. You multiply it by 1,000, that is 1 unit of Dev. You multiply it by 1,000, that is 1 unit of happiness that an Indra can experience, who is the king of celestial abodes. Okay, I'm just giving you what is the possibilities of happiness in this material world. We have not even experienced a tiny droplet of it, which is binding us here. But think of the possibilities. If you do good deeds, right, like Bible ends at being good, if you genuinely become good and you do things like scriptures are telling us, the karam kand aspect of it, then you can end up in any of these, and the possibilities of happiness, they exceed many folds, right? They increase many folds rather. Now the king of Indra, the happiness does not end there. If you multiply that happiness with 1,000, that is 1 unit of happiness that Brihaspati, his guru, gets. It doesn't end there. You multiply it by 1,000, that is 1 unit of Prajapati, who's the original progenitors of created beings. You multiply it with 1,000, that is 1 unit of happiness a Brahmaji experiences. And guess what? All these happiness are within the realm of Maya. Therefore, there's unhappiness, dissatisfaction, and unfulfillment everywhere. Now, if you think you can increase your happiness many folds, like it is happening, even an Indra or even a person in Brahmalok still suffers from anxiety, envy, comparison, and dissatisfaction, because it is still in material. Because if you go to Swarglok, you see people living a luxurious life and somebody else is doing even better and somebody else even better. They are also afflicted with envy, anger, jealousy, and stuff like that. And they are also dissatisfied. So this is how the grading of happiness goes. And now if you look at our happiness, what we are experiencing in this world, where does it fall, which keeps on binding us to this world? And the possibilities, and still you are in Maya. You are still not past the stages that I showed you in the previous slide, right? In this slide of material creation, every Brahmand has these loks. So all the upper planets that I was talking about, Bhuva, Swar, Mahar, Jana, Tapo, Satya, they are the different lokas where Gandharvas and all those categories fall into. But you have still not gotten into the spiritual abodes as yet. And then the irony is that even after going to Brahmalok, you can become an ant or a pig. That is what our scriptures say. Any questions on that? Isn't it fascinating? The level of details our scriptures get into to drive home the point that, what you are doing right now is not going to give you what you are truly seeking. Yes, Shyamji, you seem pretty, you're having a good laugh around it. Let's go ahead, please.
Since we have been reading this Bhagavad Gita for some time and we know all these things, but people who are unaware of all these things, they still live that noble life and they would have no clue what lokas are, brahmans are. So what happens to them? Will they be living the same material life throughout, or will they have a change? Will they? I don't know what to ask, but how does it go all about it?
Ignorance is not a bliss.
Don't know much about
I
it.
understood your question, Shyamji. So let me put this way. Ignorance is not a bliss. Whether a kid puts his hand into fire, knowingly or unknowingly, fire will do its job. So ignorance is definitely not a bliss. What happens? What do you think will happen to them? If you are, let's say you are in England, or let's say you are in Brazil, or let's say you are in US, right? You don't know the rules of the land and you're doing whatever you think is right. You think the rules will spare you? They will not. So what will happen is because of their ignorance, they will continue to repeat in this world. They'll go in upper planet, lower planet, or keep on repeating here to lower species. That cycle continues until one day they have a spark. And even after having a spark, there is no guarantee, right? How many of us have been reading Bhagavad Gita, but does that mean are we going to go to Golok? Of course, we don't know, right? Really depends on how we exercise our free will and then take our devotion to the next level and get closer to the principle of surrender. So it really depends on that. Even after knowing, it's not so straightforward. But yes, people who don't know, they don't get any benefit of doubt. Yamaraj is not going to say, hey, you know what, you didn't have that knowledge, so let me pass you. No, of course not. And the fact that you have knowledge now, he's not going to tell you now that you had a knowledge, I expected more out of you, probably, maybe. But ignorance is not a bliss, to answer your question in that case. You have
Who
to.
is better, them or us? Since we are reading
I
Bhagavad
don't
Gita,
know.
intellect is also not so strong. We, as you say, we knowingly or unknowingly, we still do some punyas, papas, binding karmas. And still, if we are again rotating this in this world, like 8.4 billion. So, what good, what harm? I don't know what to say, but it's quite tricky, isn't it?
Tricky in what sense?
In every sense, knowingly, I'm reading Bhagavad Gita. I'm trying to improve myself, and still, I do not do it knowingly or unknowingly. I shall rotate. And if God graces me, I'll be with him. So ultimately, it's all God's grace.
True. And God's grace follows a rule, right? God's grace is not whimsical. It follows a rule. And that rule is perfect Sharanagati. So you fulfill the condition, you get the grace and you get out of it. It's very simple, right? Now what
So
stops
whether
us?
I read
Question.
Bhagavad
Each one of
Gita,
us. Sorry?
so whether I read Bhagavad Gita or not, if I surrender to God, it's over and out. Is that so?
Yes, Bhagavad Gita, if you look at it, Lord Krishna has gone through 18 chapters of telling Arjun how our mind works, that his actual identity is that of a soul, what is a good karma, what is a bad karma, what is a gunatit karma, what are the different paths, what is dharma, what is adharma, what is paradharma, what is aparadharma. And finally, he goes on to say, Saram sarv dharmam parityajya mamekam sharanam braj. That is the executive statement. He said, forget all the dharma, just surrender unto me. So finally, you have to surrender to God. Even in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, people who follow the path of Ashtanga Yoga, it says, Ishwar paridhanat. You have to surrender to Ishwar. So the end game is to surrender to God. All these knowledge that we are gaining is to embed that knowledge so that it becomes our, firm conviction that finally we have to surrender to God. And surrender to God is a topic in itself. Again, we are going to talk about it, 6 principles of surrender. Surrender is a state of doing nothing. But in order to reach the stage of doing nothing, we have to do a lot of things. And those lot of things is, reading the scripture, revising this knowledge again and again, practicing it whenever the opportunity presents itself. And then we will keep on making progress. God will not give you credit for aiming at the target. He will give you credit for hitting the target. He's raised the bar
So
for
for, so for simple surrender, we have to go all this thing. And still we don't surrender, isn't it?
Of course, that is question we need to ask ourselves. What stops us from surrender? And we can deliberate and discuss that topic in detail in one of our sessions as well. Let's move on. I see a couple of other.
Radhe,
Radhe, Radhe. Great question. Thank you, Shyam.
Radhe Radhe. So thinking about it from the perspective of our quizzes, because we have very tough quiz master. So it looks like here the highest happiness that we can get on earth is 10 to the power 30 times lesser than that of Brahmaji.
Calculated that way, okay? That you're going to make a math question out of it, and that will be.
No, what you never know what can Rahulji make. But
True.
then
What I'm saying is, it is koti. Our scripture says when it says shat guna or koti, right? It's more of a figure of speech. I don't know what is the denote. So I've just put it as 1,000 just for the simplicity's sake.
40
Just
is
500.
1,000, I guess.
Okay. If you say,
But then
I don't know, but yeah, the point here is it is much more than the unit that is possible in the previous one. Let's understand it that way. That means the level or the grades of happiness, they are immense, and we have not even experienced even a semblance of it as yet on earth, and still we are so hung up or attached to it that we don't want to seek God or to make align to certain principles which God promises will give you the joy, bliss and peace that you have been seeking. And we still continue to fill that void with material acquisitions. Let me do this, let me get that, let me do this. And it's a futile chase. It's essentially the message of our
and
scripture.
just to add to that, like this is what we can maybe in some sense quantify, and hence we see it here. What is even beyond and even much more is the real happiness of God's bliss, right? That cannot even be quantified.
It cannot be quantified. That's why it's not even on the chart, right?
Correct, yeah.
It will be an apple to orange comparison we are talking about. It is called an agitated state of mind that we call as happiness. We've not really experienced happiness as yet. It said that there was a guy who went to his guru and said, oh, give me some kind of an experience, spiritual experience, something of a spiritual experience. His guru said, you'll not be able to take it. He said, no, give me something. And it is said he just touched him on his head, and this guy conked off for I don't know how many hours. He could not tolerate that. That is how intoxicating divine bliss could be. In fact, it is said that if you taste a drop of it, you will disintegrate. We don't have the capacity to take that bliss. Our heart, the way God has designed it is, it has thermostat on both sides. It cannot take happiness beyond a point, and it cannot take pain beyond a point. And divine bliss is something, unless you have prepared your vessel, you cannot even take it. You will disintegrate. It says that only gold vessel can hold a lioness or a tigress milk. I don't know who has tried to milk a tigress, but it says when you do that, only a gold vessel can take that. And similarly, the divine bliss is something we need to have a vessel which can hold it. It's not something simple. So even if we get that bliss, we'll not be able to take it. And only when our Antakaran vessel is prepared, then God will give it to us through His grace. Yes, Rahul? And then we'll get to Kumarji.
Vanna ji's question is
Okay,
also.
we have 4 more minutes. Please fill out the feedback tracker if you have any more questions. We have 4 more minutes because we have a hard stop today. So yes, one question you can read and then Kumarji real quick. Yes, Rahul, you want to say something?
Yeah, there is a comment from Payalji in the chat that we need to elevate ourselves to that height that God has to choose us to take us back to God.
Yes, we don't leave a choice for God. I love it. It's like God says, okay, I was waiting for you. Very true.
And I will take 1 minute if possible for the announcements, only 1 minute or 30 seconds.
Sure.
Yeah, so right now we have the Navratri festivities at Radhakrishna Temple of Dallas from 14th October to 24th October. And if you're unable to join there, do check out the Instagram page for all those glimpses and the fantastic reels that our team is putting up. Apart from that, the biggest announcement is Diwali Mela, which is coming up on November 4th. That is also one of the biggest Diwali Melas in the DF. And the last announcement about the Swamiji's India events. Now the Sadhana Shivir for Tirupati from, I think it is in January 24 to 29. The registration is also now open. So do check that out and we'll put that in the chat.
One correction. The Diwali Mela is not one of the biggest. It is the biggest. Okay. All right. Kumarji.
Yeah.
Real quick. We have 2 more minutes.
Yeah, Jai Shri Ram. I will just keep to one topic today. The other one probably tomorrow because of time. You said who would milk tiger, right? I know the answer. It is Swami Ayyappan. Ayyappan is also called Hari Haran. And you know what Hari and Haran means, right? Hari is Vishnu, Haran is Shiva. So they kind of get together to produce a child who will kill a demon, right? But the demon is not a real demon. It's a demon for mythological this one, but it's the demon in our hearts and in our minds. We can talk more about it, but this is the story of Ayyappan. Great temple called Sabrimala in Kerala. I have been there. Nothing like it. We'll talk another day. Thank you. Jai Shri Ram.
Thank you for bringing that for us. Thank you, Kumarji. Sundar, there was one more question from Vandana ji, you said. We can take that quickly, real quick.
What about people who are from other religions?
People who are from other religions, see, Swamiji said that everybody is perfectly situated where they need to be. So depending upon the class that we are ready for, we'll be put in that position in that particular religion. Nobody has a proprietorship over any religion. The lessons that we need, accordingly, we are positioned there. But the fact still remains that you can attain God only through love. Right? And the fact still remains, like I always say that, okay, that, where the message of Quran ends, Bible begins where Bible ends, Bhagavad Gita begins where Bhagavad Gita ends, Bhagavatam begins where Bhagavatam ends, Chaitanya Charitamrit begins, and I would say even Charitamrit begins, the Bhakti Shatak begins. So really depends on the student, what you are ready for. God will position you in that particular class. Okay. So the principles are principles. So if you have to get the highest bliss of God, the principles still remain the same. Whether we have access to it or not in our current life does not matter. Maybe that's what we need at this point. Okay, with that said,
regarding the highest bliss, Monica ji has sent a comment that she wanted me to read out. That this is why probably people who try to hide in Nidhivan in Vrindavan, they come out mad. To watch Ras Leela.
Oh my God, don't get me. It's a topic in itself. Okay, we've run out of time, but yes, Vrindavan, and we'll talk about that topic and the bliss of Krishna and all that stuff. It's a topic in itself, and we can go on and on for that, right? If you go to Vrindavan, and if you're not sure how famous Krishna is, go to Banke Bihari temple, you'll get to know that, okay? And ask Shyamji separately if you're still not convinced. All right, with that said, it's 10 o'clock. Over to Sunil Bhai and Ajay Bhai for the next section. Radhe Radhe from my side. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thank you from my side.